Hello, this is Benjamin Price reporting. This is District of Cinema with Benjamin Price, and today I'll be speaking with Anna Hints, director of Smoke Sauna Sisterhood. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing really great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. And I'm really excited to talk about this movie.
Mm,
Because my first question is just what was sort of the creative genesis of this project? Because it's such a specific setup.
mm. Well, I can really say that this film is rooted in my roots. I come from the indigenous culture of Southeast Estonia, where smoke sauna is a sacred space for us. And it's a place where women used to give birth, wash the dead, and heal. And you enter there naked, naked as in your body, but also naked in your soul. And you wash there your body, but also your soul. And in my case, it was my granny who introduced me to this culture and rituals. And when I think about where the impulse to the film has started, and actually it started when I was 11, and my grandfather had just died, and his body was in the house. And one day before funeral, we went to smoke sauna with aunt, granny, and niece. And then my granny there revealed first time that grandfather had actually betrayed on her and lived with another woman several years, and how difficult it was, and she had 4 kids and after war. And then she released all these experiences, all the emotions connected with that, like all the frustration and anger and shame and all kinds of different emotions. And we were there, and one smoke sauna lasted several hours. And once we went out, I felt that granny had made peace with grandfather, so that next day we could bury grandfather in peace. And this is the point when I really like realized, or it got to my soul, like, okay, that's on this earth there is a safe space where absolutely all your emotions and all your experiences can be shared, can be heard without judgment. And when we give voice to our experiences and others listen just without judgment, then there is huge healing power in that. And also not to be afraid to hear and share the uncomfortable. So this is really, I think, the impulse for the film,
Yeah.
in on subconscious level, you can say, the genesis. Of course, later when I was 2015, I made the film 7 years. So 2015, when I was in a monastery with my mom, we have had difficult relationship, and I was doing this silence retreat, and it was 26 days of silence. And then suddenly in that silence, I realized really that I started to hear a lot of voices inside me, a lot of voices that have been also silenced. And I started to question, like, okay, all those voices, but where is my voice? Or who if we think this is our voice, is it really our voice? Or who does the voice belong to? Or where is my voice? Or so many silenced voices. So the importance of voice and giving a space for the women to have to share their voice. So my my experience from smoke sauna, and then this deep understanding of the importance of voice came together and formed like a vision for the film.
So your background thus far is primarily in shorts. I'm curious, what about this concept of the sauna like demanded a feature for you?
Actually, my background is in contemporary art. And music, experimental folk music, and I studied also literature and folklore.
Mhm.
But yeah, when I went to film school when I was 28, and I did shorts mostly. But this um, from the start, I had a vision. This is a long because, and I made this film 7 years. It really required time. Actually, I think the time was actually one important characters or elements, providers for the stories to emerge. And when you make smoke sauna, then you need to take time. First, you need to take time, like 6 hours before you heat it. And then, like I said, one session, regular session lasts like several hours, 4 hours was like average. Sometimes it went to 8 hours. So already like in the concept or in the genesis, you can say the time is so important. And I wanted to transform my experience of smoke sauna into the dark cinema hall, so that you would be there and feel like how, like almost among these women, among this sisterhood, like being in that dark, small, dark, safe space. So it would not work in short. It needed, like the time was very important component, and it was clear to me from the start.
And talking about putting us in that room, what kind of conversations did you have with your cinematographer about how you were going to execute off of this concept and really put us there?
Yeah, it's like funny because when you go to a cinematographer and say, hey, let's shoot in a really small dark space with no electricity, only one small window, and there is heat, like average temperature is 80 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much is it Fahrenheit, but it's hot, like 100 water boils. So it's hot, it's humid. It's like, yeah, but like a challenge. But it is a challenge physically, but also, of course, emotionally. And you have to really, as a director, find people who support your vision and who do not say, who say yes to challenges, or like, okay, let's find a solution for that challenge. So for me, that was, of course, the physically way I can tell how we did it. But the bigger challenge for me was that there are naked female bodies, and then nudity in smoke sauna is nothing sexual, nothing at all sexual. So for me, with having a degree in photography, was really important that but like when you take, I know very well, when you take out camera, it's never objective, it's always subjective with a glance. So how can I make sure that there is no objectification of the bodies and no sexualization of the bodies, so that you would feel as the audience how the nudity as it is, non-sexual nudity in smoke sauna. So what we did was actually first testing out with a cinematographer on my own body. We were finding the language. And then when I felt safe, then I showed it to the women, and then they felt safe, and I was following like who wanted to show their face, who didn't want to show their face. And we were like looking for landscapes. We were looking for like how these bodies, like these bodies become like a collective experience in a way. And then following, as I said, who wants to show their face, who doesn't. And then, of course, technology wise, we had around camera, we had ice bags, and we had to like all the time change them, and then making sure like you're hydrated. And then because in smoke sauna it's like this, you're inside heat, and then you go out, then you come back. You go out to breathe, you come back. You cannot do it with the same lens. So we had one lens that was outside, and the other lens we had to adjust while heating up the smoke sauna. So like first putting on the floor, then after 2 hours more up, after 2 hours more up, after 2 hours more up. And it was interesting because we had to really like be sensitive in all senses, like also sensitive towards the camera. So when we had the rule, whoever said that they needed to breathe goes to breathe. And the same was for camera. Same was for camera. When camera said, I need to breathe, then we had to stop and go outside, and the camera needed to breathe. And it actually really worked for the intimacy in the film, because you had to be so sensitive. And then the cinematographer had wet cloth dripping all the time, and like really it's like a very challenging place, but at the same time super cinematographic. I mean, like for me, the light there, and not just light, but also the soundscape of smoke sauna. So the task was how not to imply on something on there, but how to like find means to be able to transform that into the film, how to transform that magic onto the film. And there's a lot of magic there. So how to capture that, like I felt we had conversations about like, oh, it feels almost like you're sitting inside a Caravaggio painting, and how to then capture that, and then the light and became like, I think is also very important. in the film. So yes, a challenge, but you need good people around you. So important. A film is never made alone, and I just have a wonderful team around who really supports, and also like how we were creating the intimacy with women. It was, the whole process was very transparent, and I started with the women whom I knew, the sisterhood that I knew. And then I had this rule that I will not persuade anyone, that only I was honest in what kind of level of intimacy I'm looking after, and only those who were like, yes, we want to be part, we continued. But those whom I felt or sensed hesitation for me, it was no. And then we had this agreement that only in the post-production I show the edit, and they have the right to say yes or no. So like how to include their voices till the end. When I am emphasizing voices, I cannot take away those voices. So it was risk for production, but you need to take risks. If you want to be vulnerable, I think as a filmmaker, you also have to make yourself vulnerable. So, yeah.
Well, and can you just talk a little bit more about how you found those subjects and made them feel comfortable enough to tell their stories?
So as I said, it started with a community that I'm also part of. So it's like I'm a voice from within, you can say.
Right.
And then yes, then it was, as I said, no persuasion. Only those who wanted to be part. I was following. I was showing how I'm. The visual language, and I was following how they wanted to be, who wanted to show their face, who didn't. And it was, I made the film 7 years, and it started before Me Too movement. So actually during the process, after like a second year or something, women started to approach me and said, hey, I want to be part of the film. They felt that maybe society is getting ready to for this film. And then it was really like including, being like not from the God perspective or not from the power perspective, but being like kind of like in the circle. And because they didn't sign, it was very important, I think, in terms of trust, that usually it is like this, that you sign the release forms before you film. And I felt it was so wrong. It would have been so wrong. How can they, they would be in the smoke sauna, so open, so naked in all senses, and then they would be very self-conscious thinking of what they are saying. So it was really, I have to congratulate my producer, Marianne Ostrat, who supported this vision, that they signed only in the post-production after they saw the whole film. And so it was, they could have said no, and but they didn't say, because we were all the time like really, I was like just being very sensitive to what they, how they were, and communicating throughout the process till now with all the women. And then women started to approach me more and more. Estonia is very small, 1.3 million. So once it was even like a car came into the farm where we were filming, and the woman came out and she was like, "Hey, I want to be part of the film.
Yeah.
Where can I get naked?" So it started like it started to grow like this. And then on second year, Kadi Kivilo came, who is there with her name and face, and she was like, "I want to be in the film, and I want to be there with my face." And then we went to Smoke Sauna, and we filmed, and I noticed how amazing she is in listening. So I was telling cinematographer, let's focus on her listening. And then she became like in all saunas, like a sauna keeper. So I was following organically how this, organic, like for me, art I'm looking for life in art, how that it's not something dead, and it can be in different forms, in different genres, but something that is alive. And when it's like organic and live, you have to like how to create in the production ways that you can, get those impulses from that life, not just impose your vision, but have the possibility to include this life and create with that life. And we had this thing that we didn't talk about what we're going to talk in Smoke Sauna, so we never knew what stories come. We always entered into an unknown, and this was like a rule that I set, that no, we go there and whatever comes up. But because I am from Smoke Sauna culture, I knew that things come up, and I was never afraid that things wouldn't come up. So but I never knew exactly what. And then it took time, this shooting. So one session was around average 4 hours, but once it took 8 hours. And it was I mean, because it was just so many things started to come up and emerge. So it's like this, you're sweating there, it's in that heat, you start to sweat, and you start to sweat the physical sweat starts to come up to the surface, but then also the emotional sweat, and emotional dirt, and it starts to come up. And yes, it was for me just like how to, like, I have to emphasize that the editing took like 2 years, and took
Well,
a lot
you
of,
edited on Premiere Pro, right?
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it took, because it's like, it needs time. Again, this it needed time, because then you have these stories and you have this material, and how then from that, you create this an hour and a half a journey experience. Because it was really, for me, I wanted you to feel, you as a viewer, especially in the cinema hall, in the darkness there, to feel like experience of being in Smoke Sauna. So that was like my guide, or you can say my guiding light was my own culture, or my own experience.
Well, and so in working on this movie for so many years, right now you're kind of like, you're on your victory lap. Like, you're getting to show this movie to so many people. What are some of the most like poignant or memorable conversations you've had with people who've seen the movie? I mean, you've gone all around the world at this point.
Yeah, and still going. It's really remarkable, because so many people start to open up and share their things. I mean, it has been, for example, I remember this one woman who is 65 to 70 between this, and she told me, she sent me a message that she booked, after watching the film several times, she booked this nude artistic photographer, and she decided that basically to end the war with her body, that she had been in war with her body throughout her life. And she was like, okay, I'm going to embrace my body before death, like now it stops, and this war stops. And she made this beautiful art, nude photos of herself, and kind of like started to accept herself. And there was in Poland, there was one teenager girl who waited in the line. There was like a huge line of it took 2 hours, because people just sharing their own things, and then stories. And then she shared and she said that I was the first person to tell that she had been raped. And so you can imagine that emotional like responsibility of then holding her, she crying, just staying there with her, making sure that she finds also additional help. There has been a woman from Japan who has seen the film 6 times, maybe now even more, but when she talked, it was 6 times. And she said in her culture, there is not, or in her family, they're not, she doesn't have the experience to be vulnerable and with her family members. So she's going to the film like in a therapy to process her own issues. A lot of men have said, like, please make Smoke Sauna brotherhood. And Estonian men who go to saunas, they are like, why is it so that they go to sauna and they avoid the intimacy? And then I'm always saying that the problem is in the patriarchal mindset that goes beyond genders, and we are all suffering because of that, this pressure to be strong or a certain way. And it has been really profound. Like, it came out in UK cinemas 2 weeks ago, and I got this message from a woman who has seen it now already 3 times, and again, like it was for me interesting also when I go to different cultures, how is in that culture the relationship to nudity, for example, or female body, or and in UK. Most of the people said they have never seen their parents, for example, or let's say daughter hasn't seen her mom naked, or vice versa. And for us Estonians, or from smoke sauna culture, it's very like, oh wow, like, because I am used to see all different generations of my family naked, yeah, mother, grandmother, child. You start to go to smoke sauna already when you're in the womb. So different bodies, different, and everybody there has the right to exist, and has the right for their story, and so there is huge responses. I have so many messages that I all want to answer, but right now it takes some months, I think, when I'm able to answer all of them. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. Smoke Sauna Sisterhood is in theaters November 24th. This is Benjamin Price reporting for District of Cinema, signing off. See you next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.